So I've had the MPC Live II for almost a year. I had an MPC Live Mark I before that. There was definitely a gap in between, but I've had both devices. I've never owned the MPC I, and I've never owned an MPC X, and I haven't used either of them. So a few weeks ago, I made a video talking about how I was going to sell the MPC Live II and get the MPC Keys 61. There were a couple of reasons I wanted to do this. One, I'd been offered a little bit of a discount, so it would have been $1,600 instead of $1,900. Two, I was interested in the included plugins. And three, I don't have, or I, at least at the time, didn't have a 61 key keyboard with aftertouch and semi-weighted keys. As someone who produces mostly with a keyboard, all of those combinations of features were really interesting to me. But as my pre-order stayed in place and as it didn't ship out, I had more time to think about whether that device made sense for me. And I started to realize that actually I'm better off just keeping the MPC Live II, getting a better standalone keyboard if that's what I need for MIDI control. And with those two pieces in place, then I had to start considering, did it make sense to buy the $500 bundle of instruments and plugins for the MPC that Akai has recently put out? And I did a bit of like soul searching and really thinking about it. I watched a bunch of really good videos. IAMSite did a really good like hour and 20-minute long kind of just breakdown and rant, but not just rant. Like it was really insightful. I mean, I guess that's his name. But anyway, after watching his breakdown, I realized I don't think $500 makes sense for me for that expansion pack, and I'm hoping they'll eventually drop it to $200-ish for all of those, maybe even less. I would gladly pay around, $100 for Fabric XL and $100 for OPX4, but $500 for all of that just doesn't make sense. And the reason it doesn't make sense for me is because you can use the auto sampler on the MPC Live. And so I found myself inspired to try to make my own sounds this week and sample VSTs that I have on my computer. And so pretty quickly, using the MPC software, I was able to auto sample Native Instruments, I think the Giant, or it might have been, no, it was the Grandeur, as I can see in this preset name. I sampled just a few notes of the Grandeur at a few different velocities, and I made myself a really easy to use key group, and then I saved it to the SSD on the MPC Live. And then I had a piano that sounded better than the stage piano, which I had actually tried the plugin for. IAMSite pointed out that the pianos that were used in stage piano were almost exactly the same multi-samples that were used in the Fabric XL piano. And I just realized I can make my own sounds. I mean, that's part of what's so great about the MPC. And so, yeah, I've kind of fully reversed my decision to get the MPC Keys 61. I'm really going to hold off on getting the plugin bundle until it comes down to what feels like a more reasonable price. But in the meantime, I wanted to talk about what makes the MPC Live II so special to me, if I think it's worth it, and kind of give them more of a review. I've done 2 reviews of the Machine Plus, both of which I referenced the MPC Live II in, but I haven't really done a review of the MPC Live II. And so to me, the thing that makes the MPC platform so awesome is it just gives you a lot of different ways to do a lot of different things in standalone. It's really easy to utilize different plugin synths, and it's really easy to create drum groups and to take a sample and turn it into a key group. And so a key group is essentially taking either a single sample or multiple samples and playing them chromatically as an instrument. And a drum group is what it sounds like. It's essentially creating kits to perform with. And because the MPC is such a widely adopted platform, there are people making key groups out there. So for example, if I go and browse, I've got these 2 Bolt OPZ expansions that are pretty cool. This is an OB6. Child of the Corn Dog made this Dunked expansion. The F9 expansion I recently got because it was actually included, I didn't realize, with my purchase. This Kavinsky Tribute. This M1 Korg has a bunch of M1 sounds. I have a bunch of machine expansions because I used Kitmaker, which I'll link somewhere in the description if you're interested. I don't get any money from them. It's just a cool tool. Ave McCree had talked about it, and a few other folks did as well, as a way to turn your Native Instruments machine expansions into expansions for the MPC. Most of the expansions I have were free. I found them via different Reddit threads and people just linking to sharing stuff. I don't remember where I got them, so I just recommend doing a Google search for free MPC expansions. You should find quite a few threads of people who've put things together. And I think that's part of what makes this platform so cool. The reason some of those expansions feel necessary to me is that the actual main plugin synths don't sound super good to me. When the MPC Live first shipped out, or at least when I first owned it, it didn't have hype. I think it had tube synth, drum synth, bass line, when I first got it. And they added quite a few. And in the most recent update, they added the sounds menu. Hype synth was added. This was originally the flagship synth of the Akai Force, which I also have back there. And then they added the Odyssey, Selena, and Mellotron. Oh yeah, Electric was on here originally as well. And so, they've fleshed out the plugins, but until recently, and I noted this in my Machine Plus review, it felt like there really was a disparity between the synth quality on the MPC and the synth quality on the Machine Plus. It's over there. That's why I'm pointing over there. Now, to a degree, that's been fixed, right? What I talked about earlier is they have a new expansion set up, and OP4, which I can't show you because my free trial ended, sounds amazing. It's a 4-operator FM synth. Fabric XL also sounds really good. It is a dual or triple sample oscillator synth, which is pretty cool and has a lot of different sounds in it. They also have stage piano, stage EP, studio strings, and in my opinion, those 3 are pretty weak. They're the biggest reason why I decided not to do the $500 bundle, is just I can multi-sample or auto-sample my own plugins off of my computer that will sound a lot better than the studio strings, stage EP, and stage piano. But I was really tempted by Fabric XL and OPX4, and I do think I will eventually get OPX4 on this device in some way, shape, or form, whether that's just buying it standalone for $150 or just being patient and seeing if they drop the price due to feedback from the customers. I highlight these just to say that now it's a little bit different, right? I don't think Tube Synth sounds amazing. Electric is okay. It's over here. Bassline is okay. Drum synth is really good. Hype, it kind of sounds like a cheesy early 2010s EDM resurgence machine. There are good plugins and good sounds in there, but almost every preset loads with really bad effects on it. They just feel kind of cheesy. The delay feels cheesy and the reverb feels cheesy, and you can turn those down or turn them off and then add your own delay and reverb in the effects chain, which is great, but it's not super inspiring to load up presets that kind of just sound not very good. And that's, I think, where the Machine Plus is really inspiring to me versus this pre the expansion. So that is to say that the synth game is a little more even now, except that the Machine Plus comes with massive FM8, Monarch, Reactor, and this just doesn't really come with equivalent plugins. However, using auto sampler, using expansions and key groups, or buying the bundle, hopefully they drop the price, you can kind of bring it up to a sound quality parity or higher, depending on what you auto sample with the Machine Plus. It's worth noting the Machine Plus also has an auto sampler now, and so that's also true of the Machine Plus, so you can auto sample other plugins. Both of these devices are way more powerful now than they were a year ago, which is great. I do tend to get comments from people saying, oh, the MPC 1 is the one to get, it's the best one. And when I bought the MPC Lives, like every time I bought the Live, I bought it used, and so I think I paid like $600 for my original Live, and then I made a profit when I sold it for like $7. I bought this with a 500 gig SSD and a hard case from Analog Cases for $1,000 total. And so I have recently seen MPC 1s on Reverb for around $600. And I do think I agree with folks that if you were just going to buy into the MPC platform, you should probably just get a used MPC 1 and then, maybe buy the OPX4 if you wanted to beef up the internal synth engines, because it's already going to come with Tube Synth and Hype, Selena, Odyssey, Mellotron, Bassline, Electric, and Drum Synth. I don't personally feel like $500 makes sense for buying the bundle of Fabric XL and OPX4 and all the stage instruments. You're better off auto-sampling VSTs. Something else worth noting is that I often get comments along the lines of, which one is better, or if you could only have one, and I can't genuinely answer that question because I am now in a place where I'm able to hold on to gear. My day job allows me to buy gear and then keep it. I make videos about it. I get ad revenue from those videos. And so I get the benefit of benefiting from holding multiple pieces of gear and making videos about multiple pieces of gear. When people come up to me and they say, okay, I can only get one device to make music, I don't want to work with a computer, because that's really important, right? If you're comfortable working with a computer, then I think the M1 MacBook Air used on eBay with a minimum of 0.5 terabyte of storage, that is what you should buy to start making music. But if you don't want to use a computer, then I actually think I would tell people to get a used MPC 1. And if they want a battery, and if they want a speaker, and if they want to be able to install a hard drive or an SSD rather than just an SD card, then I would say get the MPC Live II. But I do think most people starting out with music production or DAW-less music production especially would probably really enjoy an MPC 1, which is interesting for me to say just because I've never used it and had it, but my understanding from people I trust, such as Accurate Beats, Liam Killen, Gabe Miller Music, these folks use the MPC 1 and love it. And they've all, I believe, tried the 2 and are still using the 1 a lot. And so I would say, as much as I like the MPC Live II, and I own it. If I were going to buy one today, I would buy the MPC one used because, and I forgot to mention this, but basically when I bought my MPC Lives, the used price of the MPC one was a lot higher. There were less of them in the market, more people were using them, and so I was seeing prices of $750 and $800 for used MPC ones, and at that point it was like a $200 upgrade to get the MPC Live II. Now it would be more like a $300, $400, or $500 upgrade to get the MPC Live, or MPC Live II rather. Should you get an MPC Live versus an MPC One, like the original MPC Live? I think the MPC One still makes sense unless you really want a hard drive bay and you really want a battery. There are probably other differences that you'll want to Google and look up. I'm not an expert on both machines as far as the differences in their full technical spec sheets. But yeah, my general vibe is if you want buttons per function, if you're comfortable with using wall power, and if you want to save some money, the MPC One seems like the way to go. I even thought about selling this and buying a used MPC One, but I just realized like I would just lose the value of what I paid because I wasn't going to get what I paid for this right now. And that I like the benefits. I like the battery. I mean, I'm on battery power right now, actually. I could plug it in though. I mean, I mostly use it on this desk, so I don't think it's a deal breaker. And the Machine Plus doesn't have a battery, but you can run it off a battery bank. I'm guessing you can run the MPC One off of a battery bank as well, but I haven't tried that because I don't own one. But yeah, the MPC platform is interesting. I think it was one of the least intuitive music production systems that I'd ever tried. I've been doing music production, electronic or digital music productions, since about 2007. I had a high school class where they taught us Sony Acid, and then I moved over to FL Studio, and then I moved to Ableton. I tried GarageBand, Logic 9, and then Logic 10, and then I went back to Ableton. And then I started getting into DAWless stuff. And so I used iPads for a while, which is like DAWless Lite. And then I started getting more DAWless gear. And I would say of every device I've ever used, the MPC platform was the most difficult to wrap my head around initially. But once you learn it, it's kind of like a language. Once you understand the user interface and how to do things, it does become very quick and very powerful. And you can start to see where they really give you options. The same reason it's kind of convoluted and hard to learn is what makes it so powerful and flexible down the line as you start to learn it. I do think it's worth learning, but I do think it's worth noting that as much as I think every music platform requires some level of dedication, watching videos, reading documentation, trying it out, Googling when you have questions, the MPC platform is a little more esoteric or different from most DAWs and most standalone gear. But again, I still think if someone came up to me today and was like, hey, I can only get one piece of music gear, which again is not the situation I'm in, I would probably say get the MPC One and find some free expansions and watch a lot of YouTube videos, watch TubeDigga, get the MPC Bible, really dive in and learn the product, or get an M1 MacBook Air from 2020 used on like eBay or Craigslist or whatever and learn GarageBand for free, get Logic for really cheap with a bunch of plugins in it, or get Ableton with a good MIDI controller. But I totally understand why people don't want to go into a computer first production system, and it's why I've been using a lot of DAWless gear. Lately, when I've been making songs for my next album that I'm working on, I'll make beats on the Machine Plus, or I'll make beats on the MPC Live II. Then I will take the stems, because both the devices allow you to take stems and export stems, and then I'll put them in Ableton, and then I'll add some additional layers. But I do find that working with standalone gear is a lot more inspiring for me lately. And if I'm not working with standalone gear, I'm using MIDI controllers, keyboards, and launch pads to make my computer feel more like standalone gear. I wanted to highlight a track I made recently. This is going to end up being on my album. But yeah, I made this instrumental by auto-sampling the grandeur like I talked about, and auto-sampling a Massive X preset. And then I loaded a machine kit. I took a sample of a harp, and then I reversed it and I threw it through a granulator. I did use a hype synth as a bass, and I used tube synth as well. And I did use my Novation Launch Q49 for the actual inputting of notes. I didn't just use these pads, but for the main chord of the sampled piano, I did actually use the pads. I used Pad Perform, and you can hear that here. And so that is a Massive X, like I said. I just auto-sampled that in a few octaves with a few notes. And then I sampled the grandeur. With the different velocities. And then I used a machine kit. And it had that little horn sample. I don't normally use one-shots like that, but it actually kind of fit the vibe. And really being able to bring in those external sounds is what's so inspiring to me. And so I do want to show you the song I made. If you've enjoyed the video, consider liking and subscribing. Thank you to my patrons here. If you're interested in this gear, the Machine Plus, any other gear, I have a Perfect Circuit affiliate link that if you do want to buy anything through that, I get a little bit of a commission, which would be cool. No worries if not. And if you have any questions or any videos you want to see with the MPC Live, the Machine Plus, the Poly Tracker, or Akai Force, feel free to leave a comment, and I'm happy to kind of make videos at requests. I prioritize my patrons, but anyone in the comments, anyone who's watching these videos, I'm happy to answer questions as I can and make videos when necessary or when that's the best way to answer it. So yeah, I hope you enjoy this song, and I hope this was able to give you some insight into the MPC platform. All right, cool. DJ Khaled. Another one. Thanks again for watching. Yeah, I think this is a really cool piece of kit, and I definitely would recommend learning the MPC platform. Peace. I'll catch you next week. Sometime next week. Maybe even sooner than you think. Okay, bye.